Hello, people. Welcome back to an episode of the USL Show. It is great to be back, and we have the US Open Cup back, and we'll be talking about that as we're going through. Hey, it is, you can't tell in this, but I'm wearing green. Ryan, you have on the four-leaf clover itself. How are you doing, man?
Yeah, doing well. This is a kit that I got directly from Celtic a few years ago, but yeah, I figured I'd celebrate the holiday with wearing some green.
Love to see it.
And
You're in
another
your
green
normal
team prevailed tonight.
one green team did prevail tonight as Vermont Green takes down Portland Hearts of Pine, which I said it on Soccer Down Here. Do not be shocked if Vermont wins because their back line is legit. And they showed it well as they showed out in that atmosphere. It was rocking. The P Hop fans were out there, making some noise too. It was a ton of fun. There's a reason why they put that one on CBS, and it absolutely deserved it.
Yeah, that was the matchup I think of this round that everyone had circled. That it definitely lived up to the billing for both of those teams. That it really captured the attention of USL all last year. Portland had an amazing crowd that helped travel to this game and just made that atmosphere just really phenomenal and just kind of showed how much it's growing in the Northeast.
Yeah, and one thing with this is that the Vermont Green have been kind of single-handedly filtering or just kind of putting in players into the championship in League One lately. So good for them. I mean, there's so much talent on this team that I know Portland Hearts of Pine fans are going to want a victory, obviously, but losing to Vermont is nothing to hang your hat on, really. I mean, it's nothing to it's nothing like for you to hang your head in shame, right? Like it's a great team that continues to pump out more talent. We're going to see players that played in this match. We're like, man, they played there. Like, that's unbelievable. So it's going to hurt now, but this Vermont Green team is legit.
And just think this Vermont team is one win away in the Open Cup from being up against an MLS team.
Yeah. And that'd be fun if they can have it at the Bernie Bayo. So that would be a ton of fun.
Yeah,
Just
you're
so
not in
people
your
know,
usual background. Sorry, that's
I'm not in my normal spot. I'm in a motel. This is not a bathroom. Even though this does look like a bathroom curtain, and it might be a bathroom curtain, but this is like the motel room, and this is supposed to be the window cover, but it does look like a bathroom curtain. It's not though. If you're a podcast only, none of this matters. That literally none of this matters. But before we get kind of too lost in the Open Cup sauce, and we want to go ahead and thank our wonderful patrons: Benji Wade, Sharon Anderson, Matthew Schaaf, Doug Brooks, wow, Stephen Howard, John's Landlord, Don Garber, David Horn, Josh, Dylan Reed, William Land, Sandy, Stand Up for Standards, Ryan Smelter, Madcap Peel, Andrew Tallesley, Off the Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, NOS, NF Fresh 30, Tim Knox, Rian Lacara, Jeremy Churchman, Noah Telford, Mark Fuchs, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Frank Anthony, and John Hunt. Thank you so much for supporting us. We cannot do this without you. So let's go ahead and get into the news that sort of shocked the USL world today as we were preparing for US Open Cup matches. I was kind of wondering, and what are we going to talk about today in terms of news? Well, how about Danny Cruz going on to Minnesota United to be the assistant coach in MLS? This will see Simon Bird become the interim head coach and Paulo Del Piccolo become the assistant coach as we see him take over that job again. First time as a retired player, the first time as an actual player himself. But really here, it's Danny Cruz is off to MLS, which I think a lot of people were shocked by.
especially the timing of it as well. I mean, we had all picked Louisville to come into the league just fresh off of a disappointment in the playoffs last year, but off the back of two consecutive Player Shield titles and to just repeat the process under Danny Cruz and to basically, like, after just 2 games into the season and say, I'm going to move on to other or projects. I'm going to go up to MLS, which it hasn't been like an unheard of pathway for USL managers before. You saw it with Mark Briggs leaving Birmingham earlier this year to go into Dallas. That we've seen a lot of USL managers take MLS assistant jobs at some point in their career as a way to move up. But yeah, the timing of it definitely caught everyone off guard. And it has to be like less than ideal for Louisville to lose Danny Cruz this early in the season.
Yeah, we've seen this before. Similarly, when you had Hackworth step down to become the sporting director of St. Louis FC in MLS, which granted that's a quote unquote higher position than assistant coach. We saw James O'Connor leave Louisville to become the head coach for Orlando City, where he's now back with Louisville. And that saw your your 3 players end up taking that job and becoming player coaches, where again Del Piccolo being one of those, which is just so funny that it's happened again. I'm really interested to see if Simon Bird is the guy and if he can continue on with what Danny Cruz has been doing. I am fascinated by the timing and really by the job itself, because I think a lot of us just assumed that Danny Cruz was going to be a USL head coach at Louisville City until a head coach job came around. I feel like we all sort of thought that he was just turning down those assistant jobs because would you rather be the assistant of an MLS team or the head coach of Louisville City, where you have budget at your disposal, you have a fan base at your disposal, and you're going to be in a first division squad very, very soon. I mean, maybe this is a chance for Cruz to try to spread his wings and to a place where maybe he thinks he has a better chance of becoming the head coach. Maybe this is one of those situations where he sees a path to being the head coach soon. I don't think he would say that, but maybe that's the case. That's really the only reason why this makes sense for Cruz.
Yeah, it's and it kind of speaks to a wider discussion we've had. I was mentioning it to a friend earlier today that it's interesting how MLS has always viewed like up and coming managers has always been coming from an MLS assistant pool, where going directly from a USL team into an MLS squad has been, I guess, less common, or it's just not as been as considered among MLS teams. Whereas if they're pulling from their MLS Next Pro team, if they're pulling from another assistant, it just seems like that's been more of the quote unquote preferred pathway if you're going to try and hire someone domestically or from within the MLS circle. That once you get within the MLS circle, your name gets spread around and you're more likely to find an MLS job from there versus being the quote unquote outsider of having a USL job.
Yeah, and to answer a question in chat, how did Minnesota United do last week? Maybe he's gunning for it. It doesn't hurt his case that they just got 6-0 by Vancouver. So maybe it's not the worst time for him to take an assistant job if he feels like maybe there's a chance, you know. I think where this gets sort of lost on people is we think you would rather be a head coach than an assistant. But I think we all know that Danny Cruz, if it doesn't work out as an MLS assistant, he's not going to struggle to get another job at the USL level. He officially has job security kind of for life at this point. He could be a head coach at the USL level. He could be at the Championship, League One, Division One eventually. He could be an NCAA coach because he has the 3 letters MLS. He's had a lot of success. He can be hired anywhere in the United States for the rest of his life if he wants to be. And I think that's some job security that matters, because if he cuts his teeth, if he does well, he could become an MLS lifer, becoming a head coach or just an assistant that floats around, or he can drop back down to USL. It just depends on what Danny Cruz wants to do. He doesn't have that same kind of security at the USL level, although he should. He doesn't necessarily. Look at Bob Lilly. Bob Lilly, it gets fired or he is not retained for whatever reason. And where's his job at right now? He doesn't really have one. If Bob Lilly was known as MLS head coach, Bob Lilly, I bet he gets a job a lot quicker than most successful head coach in U.S. soccer history. But it was just, quote unquote, the second division. So I do think that matters a lot when you're looking at career outlook for these guys, especially for a young coach like Danny Cruz.
I mean, you've seen it personally with Birmingham. Obviously, there's been extenuating circumstances with Jay Heaps, but he's a former MLS head coach who got the job in Birmingham. You've seen it with Danny Dicchio, who's been within MLS circles previously, who's now come back into USL as well. So going up to MLS doesn't necessarily mean the manager is going to never coach in USL again. He could very well cycle back through MLS or USL circles as well, find another USL club. And speaking on it from the Louisville perspective, if that's Simon Bird as the next manager, or they're going to go out and eventually hire a new manager halfway through the year, like Louisville is the premier organization within USL right now that they will have no trouble finding that next manager. They have, like you'd mentioned, the very high budget. They had that squad that we still think is going to be one of the best teams in USL Championship. And they have a proven track record of willing to back a manager's project and have that success, that they're going to have their choice of managers that, like, if they want to hire another manager who currently has a USL Championship job, I think that manager may jump ship to Louisville, leaving a current USL Championship job, and we might not blame them.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up question. If you're Louisville City, do you just send a blank check to FC Tulsa and Luke Spencer and bring him home?
Yeah, I mean, like, you have Luke Spencer's own history with Louisville. That's like, that would be a match made in heaven for them. Like, it would definitely suck for Tulsa to lose out on a manager like Luke Spencer, who's really built up that team, and led them to a Western Conference title last year, led them to a runner-up in the league, and arguably Tulsa's best ever season as a club. But he got them to a final, and Louisville hasn't been in a final since 2018. He could definitely be the missing piece for this team.
Louisville was in a final in 2022 versus San Antonio.
2022,
They
yes,
haven't
sorry.
won one
Yeah,
since 18.
sorry, since 2018. My apologies.
Yes. No, sentiment was correct. And there's been a lot of people who didn't like Danny Cruz because he didn't win the cup, right? He got them 2 player shields, which I still think matters a lot. I still think that in the Super League and League One, that it is the title. I think that is the championship. Give stars for those. The championship, not as much because it's not as balanced of a schedule. But even so, 2 years in a row at the Players' Shield, that means something, especially since Louisville City had never won one before. But the U.S. is a playoff-centric team, like country. I mean, look at the U.S. Open Cup. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. What makes it so magical? It's one and done. We don't get to see Portland Hearts of Pine versus Vermont Green again at the end of the season. This was it. We may not see these teams play each other. I mean, there's a world where they don't play each other for another 50 years, depending on if and when Take a Shot Pro Rel happens. If they end up in different divisions for all these years and their only chance to meet in the Open Cup or meet is in the Open Cup, they may not meet again in our lifetime, which is an insane thing to say, but it's still possible, right? So the USL knows that the star is for the playoffs, right? Everybody knows the star is for the playoffs. That realistically, Louisville's on regular season performance kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's fun throughout the year to keep winning and finish the year atop your regular season table, but at some point you do need to get over that hump and get back to lifting the cup after a playoff final.
Do you have any final thoughts on Danny Cruz? All right, before we segue into some matches, how about we hit our top 5 moments of the week? At number 5, we have Shipman versus Sarasota as he goes one-on-one with Bolaños to keep Fort Wayne in the lead. It isn't enough, though, as Sarasota and Fort Wayne draw 2-2. Number 4 takes us to the Super League and the Pacific Northwest as Yaskinet boots it long, Solano flicks it on, and Fontenot finishes it away. This one would end 3-0 to Spokane over Brooklyn FC. Number 3 sends us to the championship and to Louisville, Kentucky, as Ray Serrano sends the ball postage stamp into the top right corner. This banger will be the second as Louisville downs the Miami FC 4-1. Number 2 sends us back to the Super League as Tyler Lucy shows us why she is her. She takes a touch out wide, and when most players would put in a cross, she puts it top corner. 2 matches into her Super League career, and she earns Carolina a 1-0 victory over Tampa Bay. Number 1 sends us back to the championship and up to Detroit as Devin Amumensa drops one of the best passes you'll see all weekend with a first-time finish by Darren Smith. It looks Route 1, but this number 1 play gets all the technique perfect in a 3-0 win over Brooklyn FC. And for our not top 5 moment of the week, we're going to go out to Colorado Springs as the switchbacks and the lights gave us one of the most exciting matches we'd have all year, much in the help of some swirling winds up in Colorado Springs. But it also gave us our not top 5 moment as pro refs say that the power of friendship is just not allowed. This is not the example we want to set for our kids, guys. And with that, let's go ahead and get into some matches. We are going to go out to the Super League, where let's talk about Tyler Lucy just a little bit. And this is going to be kind of a combined conversation as Lucy hit that absolute banger of a goal from that right-hand side, put it over into the top left-hand corner to give the Carolina Cit a 1-0 victory over the Sun. Well, guess what? Tyler Lucy just went on to do the dang thing again today, where she ends up getting a goal again. And it's another 1-0 win for the Carolina Cent as Lucy gets a header from assisted by Audrey Coleman. And this ends up being a 1-0 victory over DC Power. That one happened at like 12 o'clock today or like 11 o'clock. But this is the Carolina Cent starting to look like what we want them to. We had Mackenzie George up top. They had Shea Groom up top with her. Mia Corbin just playing that number 10 role, really playing as that deeper line player, not having to be the person. Tyler Lucy over on that right-hand side. And the Riley Magdalene Parker, Tyler Lucy just kind of wings and letting Mackenzie George do whatever it is that she does up top, playing even more central now. It's been really fun. I've been really impressed with the transformation that Lucy has given. And it's also given a lot of defensive solidity because honestly, DC Power has been one of the better teams we've seen recently. Their form has been fantastic. This is not last year's DC Power. And yet they just need 2 moments of magic from Lucy. And she has that NWSL experience. She played with the Thorns for a while. She played with the Courage for a while. She has that NWSL experience. She is showing that right now she's just different gravy at the Super League level. And it's been a ton of fun.
Yeah, I mean, in Carolina right now has come off the back of 3 consecutive wins for the first time since April of last year. And that's also at the same time that they've had 3 consecutive clean sheet victories. And that time it's propelled Carolina Saint into a playoff spot and just 1 point behind Lexington at the moment. Like, this is the Carolina Saint team that we remember from last season that was doing really well, stringing together a bunch of results. And for a DC Power team who had a very long unbeaten run entering this game as well, at least since the restart of the spring half of the season, that was a very good result for Carolina today.
Yeah, and looking at the Sun match, they were kind of playing what looked sort of like a 3-4-3 with Aguilera playing a little bit deeper than she normally does. Sydney Sutter and Jenna Butler all just kind of making up. I don't want to call it exactly a 3-person backline, but still. But you saw Shea Groom and you saw Mia Corbin kind of playing as 2 number 10s. And that was really letting Mackenzie George do her thing. And what it also did was, as we saw with the goal in our top 5 moments, where when we see Mia Corbin get the ball, spray it out wide, you just let your wings do their magic. It's kind of what made Fort Lauderdale so fun last year, was let their wings do their thing. They're going to have a great time, and you can let someone like a Luckley, or you can let a Addie McCain do her thing, and that's why they were so successful. This is starting to take a similar shape for me, where they're hitting their stride in the right time. We are seeing Carolina take advantage of the spring split again, making some additions and making yet another playoff run.
And they do play Jacksonville on the final day of the season. And if they can make up that gap against Jacksonville, which is, of course, a tall order, but like that could be a very early like cup final preview on that final day.
Yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see about what goes on with Jacksonville. Are they going to keep this up, basically? I was very prepared to see Jacksonville have kind of a Brooklyn fall off, and that sounds really mean, but these are a lot of first-time professionals, and how are they going to handle a full season? As of now, amazingly. I just don't see this Jacksonville fall off happening. But we also saw this with last year with Carolina, where they were the creme de la creme for the full year. They were just solid, consistent all year long. Can Carolina get back to doing that? I kind of hope so, because when they were right, Memorial Stadium was one of the better atmospheres that we had going in all of the USL. Granted, Hodges Stadium down in Jacksonville is giving it a run for its money, as they have been pulling massive attendances as well up in North Florida.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying with the Danny Cruz discussion that we had of like the regular season is fantastic for a lot of these teams, and it's something that we give a lot of credit to here on the show, but the stars matter for winning the cup after the playoffs.
You have any final thoughts on the Super League? All right, let's go over to League One. So in League One, let's go to our defending champions. Let's go to One Knox. One Knox, we end up seeing Murphy gets a goal early because he just cannot stop scoring. And they're back at home. It's 1-0, and we're thinking Ford Madison, they left their business done late. This is kind of what we thought from them. Not so fast, my friend. They get 2 goals. They get 2 goals in there. And it was just a fun match. It gets 2 first half goals. Humphrey gets one. That one's from a corner kick, I do believe. That's from Roman Torres, who was up in Birmingham last year, if people do remember. And then the second one happens right before halftime, where you end up getting Cayenne, whichever one is. I can never remember. I remembered it on the broadcast, but I can't remember it now. He gets the assist as Giamfi finishes it away to the bottom left-hand corner. This was a fun match, and it's really hard to go to the home of One Knox and get any kind of result, let alone a come from behind victory.
That was One Knox's first defeat at home in USL One play since June 2024 when they lost to Greenville. Like, to go that long for Knoxville to avoid a defeat at home was a reason why they won the title last season. It basically made that stadium a fortress for them. And for Madison, a team who struggled last year, missing the playoffs, to come into the home of the defending champions in their home opener and to walk out of there with 3 points is really impressive. And like, just to add on to that, Madison hasn't actually lost to One Knoxville in a head-to-head game across any competition since June 2024 as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned how long it's been. That was at an old stadium. That wasn't even the new stadium that was built last year. Like, this is not Covenant Health. This was back at UT's women's stadium. This was they have not lost in this stadium ever, including a USL League One final. Like, this has been a long time since the team has lost. And you just had to feel like once you get John Murphy scoring the goal in the 16th minute, that's curtains. I think obviously they weren't going to be able to win forever, right? It's just not possible. But you did feel like once they got the early goal that that was it. That was over. For Ford Madison to show that much resilience in what they were doing, does this feel like it's something that can early on spur them to a better season than maybe we had originally thought?
I definitely think this is something that for Madison is a very big building block for them. This entering this year, they had a brand new look team. It just kind of felt like this had to be the season for Matt Glazer that it comes together, or like we're going to move in a different direction and kind of start on a new era, a new chapter for Forward Madison. And considering that like they have a very long kind of just stretch of road games to open the year, like to have this result to say this is the belief we can go to the best team in the league from last season and walk out of there with 3 points. Like this is something that we can really rally behind and have it just kind of propel them to start their first half of the season here.
Another thing with this is that I thought tactically was interesting from this match was, like you mentioned, it's a brand new look team. The only remaining player from last year was Gebhardt, which is hilarious. Like definitely Will Smith, alone in the house kind of vibes for Gebhardt last year. Um, they end up starting Mark Segbers at midfield, and they have Mark Edwards playing that right wing back side, right mid, right wing back. And we hadn't always seen Mark Segbers do this. He was the defensive side of a double pivot to Roman Torres, who is a number 8 or a number 10, depending on what system you play him in. And it looked really good. You end up having Carmichael, you have Humphrey, and you have McCamey, all solid defensively. They were all pretty fun. Definitely Carmichael, the most defensive of the bunch, but it was a ton of fun to watch. Segbers, the defensive mid, is an interesting wrinkle that I was not expecting. And that alone could be something to pay attention to as you're watching this team progress, because he's a good ball carrier, he's a good passer, he's a good defender. You want him to get in those overlaps, but also you kind of don't need to if you're going to be keep using Steven Anor to be that guy. He was getting way out in front and making those overlapping runs all day long. Maybe you don't need a Segbers to do that job for you. Very fascinated to see if that's a continuing thread.
And just to at least kind of watch for what to expect from this Madison team kind of moving forward. Like I had mentioned, they have a very long road trip to open the year, but over their next 4 games, they have Naples, Omaha, the Cosmos, and Lexington in their first USO Jägermeister Cup match. Like those are 3 teams that were very good, that were either very good last year or we have high expectations for this season. And then in expansion side in the Cosmos, who we just saw Portland beat 3-1 last week. Like these are 4 really good tests to see if this early season success from Fort Madison was just that, an early season result in a very long year, or if it could be something sustained moving forward.
Any final thoughts on this one? All right. Let's go to the championship team or championship league. What am I doing? Okay. And let's go to Oakland Roots versus New Mexico, as the Roots end up winning 2-1. Now, they had a goal that came really close to getting in for me. It was Wolfgang Prince's goal. It was a nice cross in to a looping header to the back post. This one came dang close to getting in for me. I was very excited for this one. I I think I just love this Oakland Roots team. They're so much fun. They're coming out in the 4-2-3-1, which I really wasn't expecting from the oh my goodness, from Ryan Martin. But it kind of plays more or less like a 4-2-4. But even so, this is something I really wasn't expecting from Martin. I was expecting him to go to the 4-4-2 like he did all of last year. Not really. He's still pushing up Bachette and Peter Wilson kind of together. But Wolfgang Prentice, best name in the league, and Tyler Gibson are out there on the wings. And I also wasn't expecting that from Tyler Gibson. The last year they brought in Gibson to be the box-to-box midfielder that they were dreaming of. Now they're putting him out in the wing, and he's been effective. I've been really, really impressed with everything that the Roots are doing. I think that they are showing a lot of bravery here because you have guys like Danny Trejo, Jackson Kill, and Nabil Hackshaw on the bench, and they don't end up coming into this match. And they have other players who don't end up coming into this match that you would expect so. This has been a brave lineup to put out, and it's working really well to the point that I'm willing to ask the question early doors if they're the best team in the West.
Ryan Martin has breathed new life into this Oakland Roots team. We were all very high on Oakland from our Western Conference preseason show, and like it was met with like a real kind of like let's wait and see on how everything looks. Yes, this was New Mexico's first game of the season, but Oakland beating them on just 36% possession, and now they have a chance to win 3 games in a row as a club in the league for the first time since June 2024. Like this is a brand new look Oakland Roots team that I think is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the West. And a lot of that's just down from what Ryan Martin has been able to instill in the team, the confidence that he's breathing into the side as well. And like with the matchup against Phoenix, against Orange County as the next 2, with a date against Tulsa on the horizon in April, like this could be a Oakland Roots team that puts together a lot of results to come.
Yeah, one thing that I'm interested on the New Mexico side here is what is their way forward? Because they look decent. That's what I'll say. They looked decent in this match. But am I really sold on what's kind of happening with this team? I should be sold on Niall Reed Steven. I am. Watch him live. Watch him anytime you can because he's just legit. But, that's kind of what they got going for him right now is Niall Reed. They have Greg Hurst, whom I'm waiting to see which version of Greg Hurst he is. Valentin Noel should be an all-league player. Dayon Harris, same thing. He has potential to be an all-league player, but it still just doesn't look right, if that makes sense. It just does not look like what you want it to if you're New Mexico. I'm really interested to see how Sanchez navigates this one.
And we've seen this before last year where New Mexico was, they had instances where they would be very streaky. Like they would end the season winning or going unbeaten in their last 7 regular season games. And it carried them to a Western Conference final appearance where they lost to Tulsa. They had opened the year winning 5 of their first 6 games as well. So it comes in, I guess, valleys and mountaintops, if you will. But like it is interesting New Mexico is going to kind of approach the season moving forward, or just on basically Oakland coming in to really announce themselves to the rest of the Western Conference. Sacramento has always been very consistent as well. We'll see what happens with Tulsa moving forward. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting how Dennis Sanchez kind of motivates this New Mexico team. Moving forward, they have the Open Cup match, obviously, happening tomorrow night, and then San Antonio, Colorado Springs, Orange County, and Phoenix as their next games in the league. So those are teams that I do think New Mexico can match up well against, but it's definitely kind of a wait and see on what happens for this team.
Yeah, and for New Mexico, they have Zalem starting back there as a defensive mid, that's normally Osman Jabang, and they have Jabang playing as the right back. And I don't know if I liked it. I don't think I did. And I almost wish that they would just kind of go to a 3-back system here, where maybe you put Jabang over in center back. And somebody say, well, he's not a center back. Well, he's definitely not a right back either, in my opinion. It's one of those things. I don't know. I don't know what the plan is for them going forward. I don't know what you want them to do here. And maybe, and it's a name that scares me. It looks very Finnish. Hamalainen. Kamalane. He comes in. Maybe that's the secret here, and that's who gets started. But you also don't drop a guy like Jabang. I don't think he's really such a good player. I don't know. I'm a little concerned about New Mexico early doors, but like you said, they've done this before and they've been just fine. So maybe it's just overreaction season.
And I will say, at least for New Mexico, when it gets to the middle of May, when they have a stretch of games against Eastern Conference opponents, both hosting Tampa Bay and Charleston back to back, and then a trip to Hartford, or at that time, I think we'll have a better understanding of what this New Mexico team looks like. And if they're still struggling by then, and they might very well struggle against those two teams or those three teams that I've mentioned there, then we'll be able to start finding our panic button. But until then, I think there are still games on the schedule that they can pick up results. And I do think for this team, getting back home, playing home games in front of that crowd is incredibly important for New Mexico, almost more so than any other team in the Western Conference, in my opinion. So get to the end of the month, play that first league match game at home, have the derby match at the start of May against El Paso, and reevaluate things until then. But yeah, definitely kind of a wait and see for me from New Mexico.
And speaking of Asito Park, we got a question from William Lamb. Will they continue to play at Asito Park? They're supposed to be moving to a new stadium. It's supposed to be built. However, Asito Park is one of the best atmospheres in the league. And I know people don't want to hear that because baseball field bad, but for the love, just watch a match. And I'm not saying William hasn't watched the match. All I'm saying is like people who think baseball field bad, watch a match. It is absolutely magical, enchanted, if you will, out there in New Mexico. I mean, it is absolutely amazing the atmospheres they get out there. That I know they're ready to move to the new stadium and get it built, but it's not like they don't enjoy their time out there.
I mean, in the last home game they had at the end of last season, they still got 10,000 fans in the building for that one. And how can you hate a stadium who took its name inspiration from The Simpsons?
We got the update in chat as well. But I just want to go and throw a quick US Open Cup update as we are ready to move on to extra time. Do you have anything else from this match before we do that? All right. Here's a little Open Cup update from all of our matches from the night. Richmond Kickers end up winning 2-0 over Northern Virginia, another one of those league championship versus League 1 versus League 2 teams. Pittsburgh and Steel City was called off for this week because of snow and all that good stuff. So Steel City Derby not quite happening. Championship versus League 2. Rhode Island FC takes down Falanese. CD Falanese 4-0. We mentioned it earlier. Vermont Green downed Portland Hearts of Pine 1-0. Detroit City FC down the Michigan Rangers 5-1 after the Rangers took a 1-0 win or lead, excuse me. Westchester United fall 2-1 to Loudoun United. Again, a League 2 versus championship situation. Westchester got a fun goal back there. Colorado Springs currently has a 1-0 lead over Azteca with a fantastic free kick goal from Jonas Fajilberg, which we'll talk about him soon. And then Indy 11 currently up 3-0 over Des Moines Menace. The Des Moines Menace did not go with the fun former MLS lineup. They went with the quote-unquote normal team, and Indy kind of making them pay for it, it seems.
We'll still have a really fun slate of games happening tomorrow. Obviously, the ever so famous El Farolito is taking on Sacramento as well, looking into that Asheville Greenville game that you'll be very focused on as well. And I just laughed that Charleston's playing a team who just goes in foot mob by Badgers, which is just kind of funny.
Raccoons versus Badgers is something I'm so excited for. Listen, I know Ben Clements wants to make things happen. Please, please, please give me Badgers versus Raccoons merch. Like it can be clip art. I don't care. Give me the merch.
Even looking at another team such as Little Rock Rangers taking on FC Tulsa is a really interesting matchup. And Ventura County Fusion, a name that everyone at least pretty much recognizes within the U.S. Open Cup's history, is going up against Spokane as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Greenville Asheville game. I'll be there tomorrow. So if there's anybody from Greenville and or Asheville that sees me, say hi or ignore me, whichever one. But just know I will be there. We talked about Jonas Filberg as we move into our extra time segment. And I want to talk about Colorado Springs versus Las Vegas Switchbacks. Las Vegas Lights. Colorado Springs Switchbacks versus Las Vegas Lights. Can you tell I've been driving all day? It was a 3-2 win from Las Vegas. Don't let the lamestream media tell you that the best game of the year happened anywhere besides here. It was 2-0. The wind was blowing like crazy. Johnson gets a goal in the middle of this, right in the 60th minute. Jonas Gilberg, who really had an amazing game, by the way, like looked absolutely fantastic. The best he's looked since, honestly, their USL final season, if not the year before. And then right back to back, Abraham Okiri gets a brace in quick succession. And then you get Benefemo with an own goal at the very end. Granted, it was not calling it an own goal, I think is a little bit harsh. It ends up being Taylor Maples who puts in the header, and it just takes a really unlucky deflection off of Afemu. But it was one of the most fun matches of the weekend. And the wind helped a lot of things. It was weird in the first half, not a whole lot going on because the wind was so weird. And then the game just got weird. And if you don't like that, you don't like Las Vegas Lights football.
And this is just like classic early season USL matchups when like we still are in this kind of weird period of the weather. Like it's not quite like spring weather. You're still going to get these very cold games, and the weather was just kind of weird across a good part of the country for today through this previous weekend. And that was just a lot of fun to watch. You obviously saw it from our not top five, just with the wind and everything. But like this is the first time since July 2025 that Las Vegas trailed by 2 goals at one point, came back to tie the game, and then still ended up losing the game when they lost to Tulsa 4-3 last season. And like this is just like classic Las Vegas Lights, like just luck. It just like if we have a LADS acronym, there's a Las Vegas acronym that's just like waiting to be told or like waiting to be created here. But like this was a really fun matchup.
I mean, I can't do. I mean, it could still be LADS. It can just be Lights. Like Lights always does this. Like they always do. But to give Colorado Springs their credit, they played really well in the second half and then defensively fell apart, which was the question mark with Colorado Springs this year was, can their defense figure it out? In this match, no, but they got enough firepower to get a goal. It ends up getting Maples ends up getting a goal, and I know it's going to say own goal to Benefemo, but like if it wasn't for Afemu, I do think this goal actually happens no matter what because of the deflection. I think it's a tap in, so either way, this ends up being 3-2, even though Afemu unfortunately has to have that by a stat line. This is like, is Colorado Springs going to be run and gun all year long? Lots of goals, giving up lots of goals, scores lots of goals, gives up lots of goals. I don't know. I don't really want that for Colorado Springs fans. For me, yes, give me that. Our good friends at Walking 90 have a chaos tracker, like a chaos standings to do every single year, where basically they just add up which team is just the most chaotic to watch this year. If they keep on this trajectory, Colorado Springs might be your chaos team. In years past, it's been like Tormenta because for some reason Tormenta just kept winning or losing matches 5-4, and that's just what they did. This feels like Switchbacks. That might be the team this year, and I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah, I mean, and through the first, I guess, the first 2 games of the season, they've already scored 5 goals and have let in 4 as well. Like, hey, this team's already been chaotic. Like throughout the throughout last season, there were 13 games where it was like we had a both teams to score no bet hit for them, and like I will always take teams that are going to be chaotic. You'll see both teams to score in the games over 2.5 goals. Like this is a really fun team. And speaking of Colorado Springs, they just got a second goal as well in the Open Cup, and if we're gonna get to have like a really exciting moment, Colorado Springs will then rematch against Las Vegas the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend
Heck yes.
in
Yes.
Las Vegas.
Give me all of this. I mean, it's just fun. Do you have another match for or another moments for extra time?
Yeah, Phil isn't here, and I recall John mentioning it as well. But El Paso with a good 3-0 victory over Monterey Bay. I knew Monterey Bay is still figuring things out at the early part of the year. They've been a very reliable fade for me to start the season. But John had mentioned Rubio Rubin has gotten 3 goals now through the first 2 games for El Paso to start the year. And like Locomotive look like improved. They look good. And that's something I at least wanted to shout out.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying what I've seen out of El Paso. I had notes on them that I need to pull up because I talked about it today on Soccer Down Here, and I gotta find my notes because I talked about them pretty extensively because I really like what I see out of them. Um, yeah, so they've had Dolomeyer, who's looked great. Uh, Twamasi has been great as well. We've seen Ricky Ruiz do fun things on the wings. Hoban has been a really fun player. Phil's talked about him a lot. He's probably the most unknown youth player in this league. I think for just about any other team, a 16-year-old starting and getting good minutes and good performances is major headlines because right now it's for El Paso. It's not really talked about as much. It's been really fun. And then you get Alex Mendez, who has been fun to watch. Amando Moreno gets a good goal. Rubio Rubin has taken what Andy Cabrera did last year and has completely run with it. Is a clear step above what Andy Cabrera was, which is funny because they just kind of switched teams along the way. Is El Paso a Western Conference title contender? I don't think so. But at this point, 2 matches into the season, this is definitely not an overreaction market. They feel like a home playoff team contender. Like they look like they're in that battle.
And if we're gonna, I guess, look at overreactions, like they'll match up against Sacramento as their next home match next week. They'll be off after the Open Cup match they have on Thursday, so that will be a really good test to see where this El Paso team lies. They'll have Hartford in April, and then even at the start of May, they'll go up against Oakland as well. So there are these tests coming ahead for this El Paso team, but from the start, I like what I see.
And I'm trying to find and El Paso's taking on Laredo Heat, another League Two team. Now recently they joined League Two. The US Open Cup has never really gone well for El Paso. So maybe this is another chance to get something a little bit off the back for them. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that progresses. Another U.S. Open Cup darling from last year, Chattanooga Red Wolves, who ended up becoming just a darling in League One. Although I think most League One fans would not call them darlings because they were rough, they were tough, they were mean, they were defensive, and they come back from behind against Greenville. Something they didn't really do last year. Greenville takes a 1-0 lead fairly early on in this match, and then Omar Hernandez gets a fortuitous goal is what I'm going to call it. It's a long cross in that's supposed to be flicked on from a header. The header's missed completely. At that point, Amal Knight is wrong-footed, preparing for a header to be blasted right into his chest. This ball just goes to the back post. Very fortuitous. It's 1-1. And then Chattanooga gets defensively solid. You're going to see the shots that they kind of give up because this is what Chattanooga does. They want only about 30% of the ball. They're going to not complete a bunch of passes. They're very, very defensive. They're very, very direct. They give up 12 shots, only 3 of them on target, though. This is what Chattanooga does. They're going to limit you to shots outside the box. They're going to limit you to shots from wide angles, and you're going to get low chance moments. And Chattanooga does that to perfection. And then they go as direct as you can. They are the epitome of English football, right? We're talking about extremely defensive, extremely direct, pacey wingers, putting in crosses, and just see what kind of chaos you can kind of create along the way. I think this is going to be fun for this team as they're moving away from a 5-man back line, going to this 4-man back line. Is this something that's going to give them a little bit more offensive prowess to make more of these comebacks? Maybe, because we would not have seen this team do this last year. If they went down 1-0, that was curtains. Now they have a little bit more about them going forward, despite losing some pieces, gaining some pieces as well, to be fair. But still, I'm very impressed with what the Red Wolves did.
Yeah, I mean, it's their first time since September 2025 when they went down 1-0 against Spokane that they came back and actually won the match. Like in the time that they had since then, there were 4 defeats where they allowed the opening goal and then ended up losing. And I do think that played a little bit of a role on Chattanooga just losing steam at the end of the year. They exited the playoffs to Portland in the first round. And it's going to be really interesting to see how this Red Wolf teams kind of is going to improve as the year goes along. I mean, this was a side who last season, they started with no victories in their first 4 games. They were a very slow team to get started. And then they just strung together a lot of results through the middle of the year. And it really propelled them into a shield race with their in-state rival. And I really think this Chattanooga team will be another very consistent team kind of moving forward. In fact, one game that I am really excited for and still looking into the future is on May 2nd, taking on Boise. I think will be a really fun matchup.
Yeah, and they also have some interesting Open Cup and Jägermeister Cup, not Jägermeister, USL Cup, Prinks Cup. I've still never seen a Prinks tire in real life. I don't think they exist. Where they're going to be taking on Corpus Christi, who has looked interesting attacking wise. They get a 2-2 draw earlier on this week. They're taking on Birmingham, who last year they lost to in the USL Cup. Then they take on in-state rivals, the aforementioned ones, One Knox. I'm going to be really, really fascinated to see how they deal with that. Same thing with going down to San Antonio. Now, are they going to be another U.S. Open Cup team? I think so. This is a Red Wolves team, and I'll always say this with the U.S. Open Cup. If you're a defensive team, you can make a run. That's just how this tournament works. If you can hold on for 0-0s, you're going to be okay because then you can get it to extra time where you can maybe nab a goal or you can take it to penalties and welcome to the lottery. For me, I think that is what this team can do. And I think it's going to be really, really exciting to see if they can go on yet another run and maybe take on in-state rivals, Nashville SC again, or a very much waited for if we could get part 2 of a Scenic City showdown where they can take on Chattanooga FC again. Because if you thought that P-Hop and Vermont was just must-watch TV this year, last year that one ended in a fight, like a full-on flag planting, a brawl. It was a good old time. So I think that's one that a lot of fans are going to be rooting for, unless you're a Red Wolf or a Chattanooga FC fan, because you are probably not wanting to live through that again.
Yeah, I mean, the second round will be pairing up the 32 winners from this first round of the Open Cup. So there is a very good chance that we could see the Red Wolves playing one of their in-state opponents if Knoxville and or Chattanooga are able to advance. And yeah, if you just look at the other teams kind of in and around the area, I mean, you'll have Charlotte in this tournament and you'll have Atlanta United in this tournament. No Nashville in it this year as well, just with the Open Cup format. But I always look at like what other other professional teams are kind of lying in wait for a lot of teams in the region. So it is a very enticing way for Chattanooga Red Wolves to get matched up against another MLS team if they go up against another run.
Do you have any other extra time thoughts?
I know they were at the losing end of it, but like, congrats for the New York Cosmos just to have a team again. They lost 3-1 against Portland, but it just looks like it was a good crowd at Hinchcliffe Stadium, and I do think having I saw the graphic online, but like all the teams in the New York area was just really cool. Like you had Cosmos, obviously Westchester, Brooklyn, the two MLS sites that are there as well. That it's just cool to see that really growing as well. So just, I know the result wasn't what they had hoped, but their Cosmos are back in the league.
And I know a lot of people were upset about the stream, and they were like, "Why does it look like this? What is going on?" Apparently, they didn't have Wi-Fi at the stadium to start the game, which is why it was just so bad looking on the stream. Apparently, they just did not have Wi-Fi at the stadium, so that is that's just something to kind of note. So hopefully going forward, it won't be an issue. Hinchcliffe looks like a fun place to go catch a match. They had the surrounding area that looked really fun. It looked like a good time. The fans sounded great, and it was honestly a good match. Portland showed their prowess a bit. Like, they showed that they had a lot more going forward than the Cosmos did. I'm not entirely sold on the project this year for Cosmos, but their whole goal is to be sustainable, young, and be able to have a youth product that continue to pump out talent. It may not work this year, but next year you could see it. So I think it's going to be a really fun team, and it's really good to see the brand that is New York Cosmos to be back, even if it is in New Jersey, which I posted this on social media. Something in New Jersey being north of New York City does not compute in my brain. And I know people from the Northeast are like, "You're an absolute idiot." Yes, correct. But for someone who's never been to the Northeast, something in New Jersey being north of New York City just does not feel right to me.
Is that your basically the same equivalent that Reno is further west than Los Angeles?
Whoa, hold on. What?
If you pull up a map, Reno, Nevada is further west than Los Angeles.
Well, there was another one that was sent to me on socials that I gotta find again. It was another good one. I want to find it. It's just funny. It's just, these like funny little geographical oddities that we get in the US. Here we go. Bristol, Tennessee is closer to Canada than it is Memphis, Tennessee. Which, that just feels fake. That just feels like it shouldn't be true.
Pretty much all of Brazil is east of Detroit.
Known Eastern. Knowing the USL, they would probably put them out in the Western Conference, for being honest.
But yeah, if you check it out on a map, Reno is further west than Los Angeles.
That's so fascinating. Anyway, do you have any final extra time thoughts? All right. How about some final thoughts of the night, Ryan?
Yeah, I have reached 100 miles run in 2026 already, so that was pretty good. I think I crossed over that mark earlier today. So yeah, just happy the weather is hopefully getting warmer, and this is the kind of last bit of cold that we have here, and I can get back to running outside because I don't like running on treadmills.
That's fair. Congrats on that. You're looking at 100 miles a month. No big deal. So it's fun. For me, I'm trying to think. Really not a whole lot for me that's really that interesting. We had a big assessment come up last week, and I do this every single year where I get really sick after it's over. And I think it's just because I'm running on adrenaline for weeks, just stress and adrenaline, which that's always known to be really good for your immune system. So That's something that happened. Oh, a funny story. Here we go. I had to have a conversation with the administration the other day over the quote unquote Confederate flag that was sitting in my office. There is no Confederate flag in my office. I'm not like that. I'm not that kind of human. It was the Norwegian flag. These kids don't know what the Norwegian flag looks like. And so they were like, definitely Confederate flag for sure. And I'm like, no, definitely not. I was like, guys, you should know me at this point. Not my vibe. Just not my vibe. It's the Norwegian flag. Please just look up Scandinavian flags or just pictures of flags before you tell your parents that I'm a horrible human being. So please just just look up any other flag and realize it's Norwegian. Or just ask me, what flag is that? I could have given you a better answer. Don't just tell your parents. It was, to be fair, my administration they were really funny about it. They were like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I'm like, it's fine. It was a funny moment, but I was like, come on, guys. Let's learn the flags. Learn the flags.
Vexillology, the study of flags.
Oh, I do love r/vexillology. I am in that subreddit.
It's a great subreddit. Yeah, I'm there as well.
One. It's a great one. Well,
every once in a while you get a soccer team flag that comes up in the subreddit, and someone's always asks like, "What nation is this?" And it's always funny to me, when someone replies with, "Oh, that's Fiorentina. That's a soccer team, not a country."
Believe it or not a country. That is just Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah.
Well, wait. Now I'm trying to think. What team could probably get confused? I mean, I could see a world where somebody sees Manchester United and thinks it's Spain. I could see that.
Yeah. That'll be a bonus episode. Which USL logos or crests could be most easily recognized as a country?
Now that sounds like a fun Patreon video. That sounds like something that we need to get together on. We can talk afterward. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate you so much. And for the first and final time tonight, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see everyone again next time.